Hello, esteemed viewers and followers of the Edo Story series. I am delighted to welcome you to yet another exciting episode of this remarkable series. I am Moses Agboma. I am your host, and we have the privilege of diving into the ever-busy world of education in Edo State. I have one person in the studio who has contributed immensely to the development and the educational transformation in Edo State, and have also contributed to the gains of the Obaseki-led administration. With great pleasure, I welcome the Honorable Commissioner for Education in Edo State, Dr. John Osaoviawe. We're glad to have you, Madam.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Madam, just tell us about yourself.
Okay. Well, my name is Joan Osaoviawe, and I'm the Commissioner of Education in Edo State.
All right. So I'm sure that since you first started with the government, you've climbed through the ladders. So how many positions have you held up till this time since you first joined the Edo State government?
Well, I first joined government in 2017 as the special advisor to the governor on basic education. From there, I became sole administrator in SUBEB. I became acting chairman SUBEB, and then I became substantive chairman SUBEB. And then eventually I became Commissioner of Education. And then again, in June of this year, I was reappointed as Commissioner of Education.
Wow, that's great. What was it like in 2016 when your administration took over?
Well, so the governor was sworn in November 2016. And then by February 2017, I was invited. I was just visiting the country to deliver a paper at the Basic Education Workshop. So there were a series of sector-related workshops. So it was at that workshop that I was able to also, I guess, give my opinion on education. Particularly at the time, my talk was focused on the focus of my research agenda at that time, which was creating or developing a symbiotic relationship between the curriculum, classroom, and community.
Wow.
So after my talk, in fact, prior to that, I was trying to work with public schools in Edo, and that was how I got to know about our special schools, schools for special needs students. And in one particular school, I saw that the name of the school is MRO School. So I remember asking somebody then at the Ministry of Education, what is the meaning of MRO? They couldn't really tell me, and I just assumed that maybe it was an initial for somebody's name. Then I got to the school, and I was told MRO stood for mentally retarded. And so that was very jarring for me. I said, wow, I think this was either 2016 or 2017 January. So when I went to that workshop, that was my opening comment. I said, Your Excellency, I find it very incredible that in 2017, or incredulous, in 2017 in Edo State, in our public school system, we are still referring to special needs children as mentally retarded. And so immediately he said, who is the PAMSEC Ministry of Education, changed the name immediately. So that was when I knew that he's really serious. He's somebody that has compassion for the people, for the downtrodden, and somebody that has the right kind of values as a leader.
So as Commissioner for Education in Edo State, what was your mandate? What was the mandate given you?
As Commissioner of Education, my foremost mandate is to oversee the implementation of Edo Best, our Edo Best education reform, across all the other levels of our education system. So it's important to note that when Edo Best was launched April 19th, 2018, it was called the Edo Basic Education Sector Transformation. So it was solely focused on basic education, because at the time the governor had said if he has 100 naira, he would spend 40 on basic, because basic education is the foundation. And so when in 2021 the governor decided that we had done considerable work at the basic level, and these children that are going through a reformed basic education system are coming up to GSS and senior secondary, And if those levels of education are still in decay, then all the efforts done on basic would have gone to waste. And so in 2021, June, EduBest 2.0 was launched. So EduBest 2.0 is not an acronym, it is an aspiration that Edo wants to be the best at every level of education, whether basic, secondary, technical, vocational, or tertiary.
So how far have you gone with your mandates in terms of successes recorded?
We've been at this now for less than 2 years, and we've had remarkable successes, particularly at the secondary and TVET levels. We've been able to strengthen our education delivery system. We've been able to create, or the government has given us approval to create 3 new parastatals. One is the Directorate of Higher Education, the Directorate of Educational Quality and Accountability, which will essentially do monitoring of both public and private schools in the state, and then the Agency for Mass Education. So the Directorate of Educational Quality and Accountability, they are also, in addition to quality assurance, they also manage our private schools. While the Agency for Mass Education, in addition to supporting adult education, non-formal education, they also manage our lecture centers across the state. While the Directorate of Higher Education is meant to help us drive a more purposive and relevant tertiary education system. It's important to note that in many states in Nigeria, in almost every state, education is divided typically into, you have 2 commissioners, basic secondary commissioner and then higher education commissioner. And then you are in states like Delta, you have a 3rd commissioner of education focusing on technical education. So in Edo, you have 1 person essentially doing the work of 3 people. So that's why I am very happy that we now have a Directorate of Higher Education. So that takes away a big chunk of the load on me.
You mentioned that you were the SUBEB chairman, and during that time, EduBest, the one for basic education, was bettered. Yeah. So what was those factors responsible, for its success as at then?
Factors responsible for its success. I think number 1 is the governor, the leadership. The governor had the vision and then had the political will. From the very beginning, he said to me, look, always tell the truth. Always tell the people the truth, what is working, what is not working, and I have stood by those ethos. So that's why I'm very comfortable, I'm very confident in our record so far, even though detractors may misrepresent it as being arrogant. It's not. What we know where we were, we know what we met on ground, and we know how far we've come.
It is said that for any education to thrive, the welfare and the well-being of the teachers has to be taken care of. So how far has your administration done that?
Oh, Governor Obaseki has done fantastically when it comes to teachers' welfare. That's why in Nigeria today, Edo State, if they are not the highest paid, they are amongst the highest paid. Probably top 2 in the country. And that says a lot. When the governor came in 2016, primary school teachers, so every government employee, their salary is calculated off of a base, scale of the minimum wage. So in 2016, the minimum wage in Edo at that time was 25,000 for every government workers except teachers. The minimum wage for teachers was 18,000, okay? And the reason was because the thinking in government was because teachers are more, teachers are 4 or 5 times the size of the civil service. So because they are more, if you are calculating their salary on a base scale of 25,000, it's going to cost you a lot. Well, guess what? Governor Obaseki came, increased it to 25,000 minimum wage base scale, and then by 2019 increased it again to 30,000, and then by 2022 increased it to 40,000. So you found that some teachers, I mean, I didn't know the impact was going to be so significant until I heard some of the teachers talk about it. Some, their salary increased in a month by 20 to 30,000 naira. Okay? And that's why you find now level 8, depending on the step, they earn up to 100,000. Level 14, 15, they are earning close to 200,000 a month as salary. It's not just that, there's what is called the teacher's special allowance. So every month, teachers get a special allowance, which is why teachers earn more than civil servants. So a level 9 primary school teacher earns more than a level 9 civil engineer in the civil service. Okay? TSA was stopped in 2012. Governor Obaseki came, he restored TSA. Okay? There's also what is called LTG, Leave Transport Grant. Every teacher gets LTG on the anniversary of their employment into service. That was also stopped. Governor Obaseki restored it. Then promotions. Promotions were, by the time the governor came into office in 2016, the last time primary school teachers were promoted in Edo State was in 2013. And part of the reason was because when you promote them, their salary will increase. Do you understand? So the administration at the time, I guess they didn't figure out how to cover the expense, so they didn't promote them. So the governor came in and promoted them. So you now had a situation that in 4 years, teachers were promoted 6 times.
That's massive.
Yeah. And guess what? Because of all this promotion and all this restoration of allowances and all that, the wage bill for just primary school teachers alone per month became 2 billion, not million, B. Okay? What is the IGRO of Edo State? The monthly IGRO of Edo State, if you get 2 billion, you are happy. So primary school teachers alone is 2 billion. So you can imagine secondary school teachers, you can imagine TVET, you can imagine the subvention to the tertiary institutions. We have about 7 or so state-owned tertiary institutions in Edo.
Wow.
So you have not talked about infrastructure. You've not talked about instructional materials. You've not talked about furniture. It's just one sector. Health is there. Roads and bridges is there. So sometimes when people just run their mouth, you just wonder the level of ignorance, willful ignorance, to really appreciate what we are doing, what Governor Obaseki is doing in Edo.
Well, great investment going to the
Absolutely.
educational sector. So, Irma, you tell us, has been the role of World Bank in terms of funding in the Edo Best program?
So when we started in 2017, it was Edo State government. There was nobody supporting us. There was no grant. There was no money anywhere. It was just purely Edo State government and Governor Obaseki using its sheer willpower to make sure that he funded the education reform. So at some point, given our initial success stories, I think the World Bank people in Washington, D.C., not even Abuja, were hearing about Edo Best. In fact, there was a conference in Washington, D.C. that we took some of our teachers to attend. And these were teachers from rural and urban schools. So it was very diverse. And the people in the audience and our teachers were on a panel. They heard them speak, talk about the transformation that they were getting through the Edo Best program. And even things like, some of the teachers said their diction was now improving. The way they pronounce, the way they speak. Some said they were losing weight. They were becoming more shapeful. They were getting compliments from their husbands because now with the Edo Best program, you have to be moving up and down. You are not standing stationary. So to cut a long story short, people in Washington, D.C. started talking about what is this Edo Best program. So I'm sure the office in Abuja got to hear about it. And then they reached out to us that there is a program called P4R, Program for Development. So the P4R program, I believe Edo is the first state that the World Bank was giving that facility to. Typically, World Bank does not lend directly to state, they lend to federal. You understand? And because state government, subnational government can be a bit, but they were so confident in the abilities of Governor Obaseki, so impressed with what we were doing. Before they even said they were going to do P4R, they had come several times to visit our schools, not just in the urban areas. And when they come, what happens is you give them a list of all your Edo-Best schools, where they are located, and they pick. So it's not like, okay, maybe we are sending them to the same schools and things like that. So we wrote up the program with what we worked. I mean, we must have worked on it for over a year, almost 2 years, going back and forth. So the key component of the P4R program is what is called the disbursement linked indicators and the disbursement linked results. So basically, before you are given the money, you will agree with the bank that these are the metrics you are going to be measured on. If you get it, you get this amount of money. If you don't get it, you won't get anything. So for us, the total value is like $75 million, okay? Or 70 million is what is eventually giving us. And because they gave us $70 million, we also now got $5 million that is grant. That's free money. $5 million free money to Edo State government to improve education. So then there were eight disbursement linked indicators that were attached to the World Bank P4R funds. And it went from basic education to pre-service teacher training, which is our College of Education, and then to skills, which is Edo Jobs. So for instance, you say, okay, I don't have the figures in my head, so I'm just going to throw out some things out. So we might say, okay, Edo-Best will be expanded to 80% of primary schools in Edo. And then there's a deadline by when this will be done. And if you've done it, you will get $10 million. So after the period that you're supposed to have done it, somebody will now come, an independent verifier. Guess what? Who is the independent verifier for Edo-Best? It's PwC. Okay? So PwC is a global firm. So it's not even a firm you can say, oh, let's do man no man kind of a thing. So they come in, you show them, these are the evidences. We have pre-agreed with the World Bank to show that Edo-Best is now in 80% of schools. These are the sets of evidences that they are going to require. And you do it. And these guys, they don't just come and they sit in a suburb office in Benin. They go across the state.
Okay.
They talk to different people, parents, teachers, everybody. Do you understand? So for such a large ecosystem as ours, it's very difficult. And when, evidence is being sought in a random manner, it's very difficult to forge things. Because there's always a disgruntled person somewhere who is more than happy to say, no, this thing is not working. No. But we've not had that. Even those that are not happy with the system for one reason or the other, they cannot say that what is happening is not happening. So again, in a nutshell, the P4R program does not cover infrastructure. World Bank does not put money in infrastructure. It covers quality assurance, basic education management information system called BEMIS, Edo Jobs, in terms of technology, skilling young people. I think the target for Edo Jobs was like 20,000 young people in skills. Okay, it covers, like I already said, pre-service teacher. So that's our College of Education. We want to make sure that the next generation of Edo teachers have the right kind of competency to teach. So that's what this is. And since we started, we didn't start the World Bank P4R program came into effect April 2022.
Oh, that's quite elaborate. So we're going to the policy called the Edo Star policy. Has it actually achieved its purpose? And what is this policy, if I may ask?
So Edo Star stands for Edo Supporting Teachers to Achieve Results. When we started Edo-Best, we thought, okay, what do we need to also have something for the teachers. And so Edo Star came about. We looked at one of the challenges we've always had, and we still have, unfortunately, is the teacher distribution. So a lot of teachers want to be in the urban areas, understandably. And many don't want to go to the rural. So even when you transfer them to the rural, they walk their way back. So during the time of Governor Obaseki, it became impossible to walk your way back. Do you understand? Because the governor from the very beginning was very no nonsense about it. That you can't ask for favor because every teacher is connected to somebody influential. So you do for one, you have to do for the others. So when we saw that there was a strong desire for teachers to be in the urban area, we also were realistic enough to know that a teacher that is not happy, a teacher who has to travel to the village Monday to Friday and their children are in Benin, they are worried about their children, they are not going to be able to focus. Morale will be low. So that was how we now started the Edo Star Teaching Fellowship Program, which the first phase focused really on the rural areas. So we had to work with the then local government council chairman. We started actually 2019. COVID slowed us down. So the local government chairman, traditional rulers, traditional leaders in the 18 local government areas were involved to say, nominate your indigenes who are living in your communities for the Edo Star Fellowship. Okay? So the rationale is, once we have hired you in that community, rural community, you will begin and end your career there. Okay. You're not coming to Benin.
All right.
And the other reason why we called it a fellowship was that we wanted a 2 to 3 year period where we really observe them to see how competent are they, what is the level of mastery of subject matter. Because we are also now trying to entrench a new culture, a new work ethics, a new ethos. We want to bury this very atavistic mindset of government work, na shoulder then they put on, to say, no, if you are a teacher is a vocation. You have to put it on your head. You must carry it on your head. And so that's why we said, okay, those start teaching fellow. After by this December, we are going to be rolling out performance management. Those who do well will be permanented. Right. Those who are struggling will be given a space to improve. If they cannot improve, they have to go. We bring in new people. We have a database of over 30,000 applicants waiting to be pulled into the system.
All right. So speaking with regards to the level of infrastructural deficits in the education sector, people would want to know the steps that have been taken to eliminate those deficits and the facts and the figures about the schools that have been renovated or removed.
So when we came in, we met the Red Roof Revolution, on ground. The Red Roof essentially meant that the schools that were renovated by the previous administration, the color of the roof was red, okay? So when we came in, some people advised us that, it's a new administration, we should use a different color. The governor did not buy that. I also didn't buy it. I think, there should be some continuity. And so we adopted the red roof, okay? But looking back now, although I don't regret that we adopted that color, because when we came, the other thing we meant or grant was that in one school, in one compound, you could have maybe state government did one block of classrooms. The color of the roof is red. In another block, maybe it's a constituency project done by the federal legislators. The color of the roof will be green. Maybe in the same compound, another group did something, color will be brown. So in one school, you had a multiplicity of colors, color riot. We had the same thing with furniture. In one classroom, some are plastic, some are 2-seater, some are 3-seater, some are 1-seater. No standardization. So we said, no. We must agree on a standard and everybody must adhere to it. So we adopted red roof. But later, some of our detractors, especially the opposition, are now saying that, all the red roofs were done by the previous administration. So if there's anything I would say I regret, is that all the schools we didn't commission them. Because at the time, Mr. Governor was not into commissioning project. But did we show pictures? Of course we did. Okay. The other thing we found when we came on board was that there was a high level of vandalization. So a lot of the red roof schools had been vandalized. Then Alumaco windows were being used. Alumaco has a high theft value. Okay. In fact, there was a case of a pastor who paid somebody to steal Alumaco windows from our school that he was going to put in his own private school. That case went to court. So with this, and then also when the kids are playing football, whatever, the tendency to break the windows was very high. So essentially, we had to change from Alumaco to steel windows and doors, locally made steel windows and doors. That was also a way to patronize local artisans. What that also meant, the high rate of vandalization and destruction, was that some of the schools that were done before, we had to come back and redo them. Do you get it? So that also took us back. The other thing we did was we introduced color schemes. So before, all the classrooms were painted the same color, just one drab red, mud red, and that was it. We said no. KG 1 to 3, we call them ECCD. The classrooms were more colorful, and they had drawings on the wall. P1 to 3, different color scheme. P4, primary 4 to 6, different color scheme. The other thing when we came that we noticed was even furniture. There was no standardization. So a furniture meant for a primary 6 pupil will be placed in a primary 1 class. And so when the little kids will sit down, their feet will be dangling because it's too high for them. And there was no proper blood circulation. So if there's no proper blood circulation, how can you learn? So for furniture, for the lower grade classes, ECCD 1 to 3, we introduced plastic furniture with tables. The other thing the governor wanted us to do was have amenities. So every school must have a playground, sporting facility, and so on and so forth. So as at the time I was leaving Subeb, we had intervened in up to 400 schools. Okay? We had cleared, in 2019, I think it was, we launched No Child on the Floor, right? And by the time I was leaving, we had covered that furniture gap by up to 85%. Okay? Before we even started infrastructure, in 2017, we did a census of all schools. So we knew the number of schools that had toilets, the number of schools that didn't have toilets or water. In fact, the other thing we did was, when we came in, we put in place a policy that no more pit latrines in our schools. So all the pit latrines were now being converted to water systems. When we also came in, we discovered that even when water system was built in schools, it was not connected to water, which was very hard. So you have to use bucket to go and fetch from the borehole to flush toilet. It didn't make any sense. So all those ones that were not done, we had to do them. Then the other thing was mud buildings. Any school that was built with mud, we did not renovate. We demolished and built from scratch. So that became a policy, no more mud buildings. And so that was why in 2019, based on the report we had submitted to the governor, he gave a directive that all dilapidated and unhabitable schools or inhabitable schools should be demolished. We sent our education secretaries, these are the people heading basic education at the local government level. We sent them to the communities to go and sensitize and tell them we are going to temporarily close these schools, migrate their children to the nearest school until government is able to. And these people came back, they ran back to say they were almost lynched because the communities were like, no, once they allow government to temporarily relocate their children, government will never build that school. I mean, it's understandable. So they didn't. So we had to figure out what to do. Then again, in 2021, governor further gave a directive, go and demolish. And so we started demolishing. So we have, at the basic level, we have over 1,300 schools, just basic alone. So even if we've done 700, it still feels like we haven't done anything. Then we have 297 secondary schools. And beyond basic and secondary, governor has been working heavily in tertiary. Igwariahi, they had to completely demolish and build from scratch. Go and look at Igoraki today. College of Education, Abudu, they had to do massive renovation, reconstruction. Do you understand? Edo State University, Uzaire, where the previous administration left off, this administration has continued. They now have a medical school. They have to build the facilities. AAU, the same thing. So it's a lot going on infrastructurally. And when you are intervening in our tertiary institutions, these are not 100 million naira, 200 million naira jobs.
It's a million naira project.
Yeah.
So in recent times, I understand that your ministry has this relationship with private sectors. When I mean private, I'm talking about, school owners, private school owners. So tell us, how come that relationship, and what has that relationship, gotten?
Well, when we came in, again, you see, over time, things have gotten progressively bad. And people just became so used to doing things the wrong way. So we came in and we said, for private schools, it can't be business as usual. You must meet minimum standards. Your teachers, number one, must be qualified. You can't have SS3 graduates teaching. It doesn't make sense. In some of these schools, you have it. I've seen some myself, Issues of the quality of the learning, the quality of the school environment. And we said, okay, we need to make a distinction. What is a 4-flat for residential living? And what is a school for educating young people? You cannot be in a boys' quarter and say you have a school. It doesn't make sense. I'll give you a quick example. This one is a tertiary institution. They have their signboard out, very proudly so. They occupy the top floor of a 4-flat building. That's a tertiary institution. So you can imagine what kind of teaching, what kind of graduates will come out of such a place. So for private school proprietors, in a nutshell, we want to work with them. We want them to succeed, but we want them to also deliver quality education.
I'm sure that during this time of relationship and doing this, going about making this implementation, you've come across certain challenges. What are these challenges? Just briefly as we wind up.
Challenges abound. Mindset, fixed mindset.
Basic challenges.
People wanting status quo to remain. When I came into education had become heavily monetized. So a lot of, pay for this, pay for that. And but so far, we thank God, by the grace of God, with the strong support of His Excellency, Governor Obaseki, and the commitment of some very good civil and public servants, we are making progress.
All right. So one final thing. I feel you have legacies that you want people to remember you for. What are those legacies?
My legacies? I have not had time to think about it. Okay. Maybe closer to the end of this tenure, I will be able to reflect and say. But I think for me, maybe for now, would be that I brought back quality education to Edo State.
Wow. All right, esteemed viewers and listeners and followers, we've come to the end of this episode on the Edo Story Series. I have been your host, Moses Agboma, and I've been doing this with the Honorable Commissioner, who has revealed a lot that have been going on in the educational system in Edo State. So until we'll come your way again, bye-bye.